Good evening and welcome to I-24 News Defense, your weekly review of strategic affairs, security, intelligence and more, brought to you in cooperation with Israel Defense Magazine. Tonight we'll discover the latest on the Brussels terror attack in the Jewish Museum and examine the silver bullet, a new and advanced type of a shell. But before that, let's take a look at what else is happening in the world.
We begin in the United States. President Barack Obama tried to regain his statesman's mantle, telling graduating cadets in the West Point Military Academy that the U.S. would still lead the world and would not stumble into military misadventures overseas. Under pressure from critics who say the United States has been rudderless amid a cascade of crises, the president said that those who suggest that America is in decline are either misreading history or engaged in partisan politics. The speech came 3 days after a surprise visit by Obama to American troops deployed in Afghanistan. Moving to Ukraine, newly elected President Petro Poroshenko says he wants to begin talks with Moscow and end a pro-Russia insurgency in the east. But peace seems far off as a fierce battle between rebels and the military claimed at least 50 lives when the army took control of the main airport in Donetsk, which was briefly held by the rebels. And a Turkish court has issued arrest warrants for 4 former Israeli military commanders, including Chief of Staff Gabi Ashkenazi, who are on trial in absentia over the 2010 killing of 9 Turks on a Gaza-bound aid flotilla. The move came after months of negotiations between Turkey and Israel to end a diplomatic crisis over the Israeli commander raid on the Mavi Marmara, a Turkish ship challenging Israel's naval blockade of Palestinian-run Gaza Strip in 2010.
The first reactions after the attack on the Jewish Museum in Brussels that left 3 dead referred to a brutal hate crime. But as the days progressed, the attack became more mysterious. I-24 News correspondent Tal Shalev has more.
3 days after the deadly attack on the Brussels Jewish Museum, the search for answers continues. In the shocked Belgian capital, authorities are currently classifying the murder as terrorism and continue to hunt for the perpetrator. In Tel Aviv, hundreds of friends and relatives accompanied the Israeli victims of Saturday's attack to their final resting place. Belgian prosecutors have denied reports of an arrest and are still investigating the incident as a terror attack, even though other scenarios haven't been ruled out.
The facts took less than 90 seconds. This, combined with the fact that the shots were fired inside the Jewish Museum, makes us believe that the crimes were committed with a terrorist motive.
3 people were shot dead in the attack, with a 4th victim dangling between life and death in hospital. The coffins of the Israeli victims, Emmanuel and Miriam Mira Riva, both in their 50s, were transferred to Israel late last night and brought to rest in the afternoon. Both held diplomatic and security positions in Israeli government agencies in the past, sparking media speculations that their murder was not a terror attack or hate crime, but rather a targeted assault in a covert war. But for the Rivas' loved ones, particularly their 2 teenage daughters, aged 17 and 15, the motive is irrelevant, and they are left with the grief and mourning.
No words can console you on this terrible day. But be assured that the Belgian authorities will spare no effort in order to identify and arrest the perpetrator of this crime.
Back to Brussels, outside the Jewish Museum, a spontaneous memorial draws visitors honoring the victims of the shooting, and security measures have been increased at all Jewish institutions. Saturday's attack, the first in more than 30 years in Belgium, has rattled Jewish communities across Europe and revived fears of a return of violent anti-Semitism.
Joining me now on set is Amir Oren, senior defense and government analyst with Haaretz daily newspaper. Good evening, Amir.
Hello.
Let's start with what is going on now on the latest on the Belgium investigation.
The Belgian authorities were informally asked by the Israeli government whether they would like to have any assistance. They declined. They would rather go it alone. And therefore, Israel is waiting to see whether the Belgian authorities would come back to it and ask for other details, for instance, on the background of the victims.
The UN Security Council strongly condemned what happened at the museum, and they said it was connected to an anti-Semitic crime. Do they know something we don't?
No, of course not. They derived their information from the Belgian authorities. What we have here is a set of facts, not many facts, and we can try and find out the relation between the facts. And the facts are that the murder was implemented by a seemingly professional hitman who knew how to fire his gun and get away within seconds and disguise his identity.
And that we can see from the videos.
Correct.
Okay.
This is one fact. And the other fact is that two of the victims, the two Israelis, were formerly employed by the Israeli government in security-related organizations. Now, whether there is an interrelationship between these two established facts remains to be seen.
When you're saying they were working in a governmental security-related organizations, are you referring to, is that an option, the Mossad?
Under Israeli censorship rules, the answer is outside the bounds. The question is legitimately asked, but it cannot be answered here on the record on your show. But
these two facts, for you, it says we need to investigate more into other directions.
Yes, because it could have been, and perhaps this is the most probable avenue of inquiry, that this was random, that the gunman wanted to hit a Jewish target. It so happened that two Israeli tourists were there, but it is also possible that these two individuals met outside of the museum while touring Brussels with other Israelis who were, for some reason, on the crosshairs of these assailants. And the fact that they met these Israelis, probably having to do with their own past, led the gunmen to the museum. Again, as in any criminal intelligence, law enforcement investigation, no lead can be put aside just because it doesn't seem reasonable.
Right.
So the investigators would probably also pursue this one.
In a few sentences, let's talk about Brussels, an international city, but also with a large Muslim population.
Correct. Belgium is an international and an inter-European city, having both the European Union headquarters and the North Atlantic Treaty Organization headquarters there. Many, dozens of countries have their legations and embassies there, but also there is a very, very growing community of immigrants. When one walks the sidewalks of Brussels, you can see them, and they can have a very forgiving background for such an assailant.
Yes, and the investigation is still on. Thank you so much, Amir Oren.
Thank you.
97 foreign and allied partners tested, built, and strengthened partnership during the International Jump Week alongside American airmen and soldiers. Here's more from the German landing zone here.
Land. Stop, drop, and roll. These paratroopers aren't training to put out fires. They're fired up to jump out of perfectly good aircraft. It may seem a little crazy, but this type of training is vital to NATO's mobility.
It's essential that we start to practice these procedures in peacetime so that in the event of a crisis, when we're called to respond in minimal time, whether that's 1 day or less, that these forces, the airborne forces, which may be the first to be called upon, are prepared.
With birds in the sky, boots on the ground, and everything in between, International Jump Week is a crash course exercise for NATO paratroopers of all ranks and skill levels. Although some service members landed a little harder than others, at the end of the day, it was all about the experience. Despite language barriers, differences in training, and the flag they wear on their uniform, service members from 9 different countries came together as one.
I've met some amazing people, made some friends from all over, so it's good that in the future, if we ever cross paths again, it'd be good to work with them, meet them again, keep in contact.
With more than 300 jumpers and 500 jumps, there's one number that stands out the most: 0 mishaps.
War is not an exact science, and artillery is one such example. And an Israeli-based company hopes to start a revolution with the silver bullet, a more accurate and less expensive type of shell. I-24 News' Matin Bar has more.
Shells are known to be an inaccurate weapon, and as technology makes the difference on the battlefield, 7 long years of experiments, testing and research led by BA System Rokar in the heart of Jerusalem were needed to get that result. A smart, more reliable and mainly more accurate shell, the silver bullet. A crucial tool for the IDF in a constant state of war.
Far and foremost is for the Israeli forces, of course. I mean, this is the most important customer for us, but we're working in the international markets. Silver bullet is an ITAR-free product. We're not limited in any limitations other than the Israeli MOD export licenses.
Silver bullet.
A real revolution in the area of counterterrorism, especially to aim rocket launchers or missiles. As soon as the enemy is spotted, a simple shell shot by infantrymen can hit them. A system that's faster, cheaper, and easier to handle.
It turns conventional shells, 155 artillery shells, into guided one. You can mount this kit on a conventional shell and then turn it into a guided one, and this is being shot by a 155 millimeter gun.
Thanks to a GPS system, this 100mm shell can reach almost any target. While 50 of them are needed in a traditional war, the smart shell divides the modern artillery's requirements by 3, an efficient way to reduce costs as budget cuts hit the Israeli army with full force.
It's not a slogan, it's an actual fact. The first shot, you hit the target. You don't need a targeting process, you just shoot. You need only the coordinate of the target, and the shell goes right to the target. And actually what you can do, you can have multiple targets from the same gun at the same positioning.
A lighter, thus more mobile artillery, which according to the Rokar's men, has already attracted interest in many foreign countries.
Joining me now on set is Reserves Aryeh Mizrahi, former commander of IDF Artillery Corps. Good evening. First, let's start with the basics to understand what is the role of the artillery corps in the battlefield.
One have to understand, first of all, thank you. Good morning or good evening, whatever. One have to understand that the role of artillery, it always has been, and it's today the same role. The name of the game is to enable. To enable the assaulting forces, the armor and the infantry, to do their mission without casualties. This is the major role of the artillery. The artillery today, in the most modern armies, is responsible for all the firepower means all over the battlefield. The meaning is that they are responsible for the air-to-ground missiles. They are responsible for the attack helicopters, for the attack drones, for the accurate missiles, and of course for the traditional artillery, which is the tube artillery. Whenever we are speaking about the new technology, you cannot hold the new technology from entering into the battlefield. But we have to remember that today we have a very, very accurate rocket artillery to most of the ranges, from 30 kilometers up to 150, and the accuracy is 5 meters, 2 meters, even 1 meter. The difference between a shell, which is going through a tube with all the pressures of the tube on the shell, and a free rocket or a free missile, which doesn't have those pressures, is tremendous. And the technology that you can put inside in the rocket or in the missile is much, much more, I would say, better technology. And the name of the game is less expensive. The problem is cost effectiveness.
So this new shell, the silver bullet, is less expensive and more accurate, right?
the silver bullet is not less expensive. The silver bullet, at the end of the day, most of the, today in the world, there are existing about 2 or 3 shells from the same category. And the prices goes from, I would say, $30,000-$40,000 up to $100,000 per shell. And from the cost-effective point of view, it's a problem. Now, people have to understand what is the role of the artillery. In the battlefield, people are forgetting what is real war. The last real war was fought in Israel in 1982.
Right.
And the problem that we will have in the next war is not the problem of the war in Gaza or in Lebanon. We will have to overcome, I would say, an enemy which is much different.
Right. It's obvious. Thank you so much for coming tonight to the set.
Okay.
That is all we have time for tonight. Have a great night from Jaffa Port.